Hi there, this is Chaotic Engineers, and today we'll be talking about SQL and relational database. We'll be going over on how to create tables and populate databases, and pretty much how to manipulate the data with inside those tables. And in order to do so, we should first understand the infrastructure. And typically, let's start with a SQL and on your computer, maybe a server. And when we're dealing with SQL, it's most likely, certainly, you're dealing with data and databases, which means that you're gonna have database right here. Let's say database one, and if I can copy this, and there we go. Database one, and let's say maybe we have database two right here. And this means you can actually have more than just two database, but for example, I'm gonna have two right here, and you can within those database you'll have table that contains your data, and say we have table one and table two and table three. You can have multiple tables for each database, and they all represent different datas within that set. You can have more than, like, for example, database 2 may have just two tables. Database 1 can have more than three, however much you want, whatever makes, depending on what you're dealing with. And we'll go ahead and talk about tables for now. For within the table, a lot of times, when we talk about table, we'll just assume let's pull out a random let's pull a random table here, and let's make it, let's say, 3 by 3. Usually you have your rows and columns here, but when it comes to database in the table sense, it's kind of like an attribute with the data that will be populated. For example, attributes are things like, um, let's assume this table we're dealing with is student table. Let's assume you're running a school or you're running a database working for a school. You have attribute like student ID, maybe their name, their major, and that will be the attribute. A lot of times in table, you have multiple attributes to represent a certain things. Right now we're representing a student, and keep in mind most, if not all, table will have a key, and most, if not all keys representing a table, most of the time is just a primary key. A primary key is something that will identify a certain data in a unique sense. For example, for here, student ID is 1, and student ID data, the first student have student ID 1, second person has student ID 2. Maybe they have, let's say, let's name the first student Joe, and then it's econ major. And the second student is named Mike, and is a film major. Um, in this sense, that student ID will never be unique. Sorry, it will always be unique, and name is just how they are, major is how they are. So, for example, if Mike change his major to econ, and it just so happened Mike also changed his name to Joe. As you can see, they have different student ID, therefore they're unique. So now let's move on to the next part, where we actually do some uh, data manipulation here. I'm using the one compiler here, and it's pretty nice, pretty cool online compiler. As you can see, they have anything from Java to SQL. We're using MySQL today, and yeah, pretty much a really cool place. Well, also, this is what it gave us to begin with. If we run this, it'll pretty much give us the output. But let's go ahead and get rid of this right now. So first thing first that we will need is to create a table. In order to do that, we'll use the keyword create, and then table, let's say we're making one for students, so student. And we'll have to put our bracket here, wrong bracket, parentheses. And within that table, you will pretty much specify what kind of attribute there will be. So for example, what we talked about, student ID, and that is a integer, and that will be a primary key. So in this case, it will be a primary key, and we'll also have a name. Is text. We'll make sure that it's not null. And right here, not null just means, it is not null. You have to have something to put it in there to populate it, or else it won't work. And then we'll have their major. And it's also text and not null. Let's make it that way for now. And if we run, as you can see, nothing happens because create table doesn't actually give any output. All it does is just executes it and puts it in the database, and kind of this bugs me a little. There we go. But if you want to select or fetch some data, what we would use is the select statement by using select star from student. And this will pretty much pull everything from student, but since right now it does not exist, all we did is create a table. We'll have to pretty much populate it. And there are a few ways to go about populating the database, or rather, sorry, the table. And there's a few ways about insert. Let's go with insert into student. And insert student. And what we can do here is values. It will be, let's say, 1, and then their name, let's say earlier Joe, and then what's her major? The econ, right? Econ. And let's run that real quick. You'll see that we populate Joe into our table of student. And in this sense, if we remove this, again, all it's gonna do is insert it. Nothing's gonna happen, but we're not fetching anything, so there's no output. Right here, if we put down select star from student, it will have Joe as selected, because star actually means all columns from student. So you're selecting everything, that's every column from that table, from table student. We'll go ahead and populate more. Alright, so I have added a few data into our table. Let's go and populate them. And as you can see, they have been populated. And select all column. The star is meant for all column from student. Again, it shows that everything from that table. There's actually another way that we can insert into the table, which is, let's see, insert into student, and then we'll set student and straight up student ID and name and major. Student ID to, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make this 7.7 because you know ID 7, and we have to name equal to Josh, and next we'll have the major as let's see, what other major is there? Econ, you know, physics, or bio, you know, bio, and that should populate. And seems I made a boo boo. Let's see. Oh, oops, did not put this equal sign there. But yeah, this is another way to use a insert statement into your table. Now, since we just finished that populating our database here, another thing we can add is we can add maybe the age or the grade. So we'll go about that later. I'll copy all these later into a doc or maybe into a comment so you guys can just copy and paste in and practice, have fun with it. Feel free to add your own data here, or your own student. But the next one we'll go about is how to select, specifically how to use the select function. In this case, right now we're selecting everything from the student. What we can do is, let's say we're selecting, we can select based on the attribute as well. So select from student where, let's say name equal Joe. Joe. And once we run this, it will show only Joe. Everything still exists. It's just you're only fetching the data for Joe. And if we change it to maybe student ID, let's give it 3. And we'll put student ID here. And we'll show student ID 3, Mike, film, student ID 3, Mike, film. And another thing is you can also do, other than showing the whole thing, you can make it where you want to just show maybe their name and major. You don't want to show their student ID because sometimes it may be confidential or stuff. You can assume name and major. And we'll hit run. And as you can see, it still shows Mike, film, and instead of every single the column right there, it shows name and major. If we change this into, let's say we want to get computer major in here, computer science, computer engineer, whichever you call it. I just put computer, and I'll put run. That is interesting. Did I type it wrong? Oh, there we go. I probably spelled computer wrong. Yeah, I did. Alright, so right here, as you can see, we're only presenting the name and major of those who are majoring in computer. And there's also ways that you can make it to sort in certain order. For example, earlier we have the table show as um, all together in a way like this. I know this is not a line. I'm pretty sure it's just a website. Yeah, it's just a website alignment. But as you can see, that is showing in is sorting by order in terms of ID. What we can do is maybe you want to deal with it in a way that's with names, so you can do a roll call or something like that. See, we'll have to do select all column from student and order by, let's go with name, and that should run in this term. So yeah, as you can see, we'll go down to A, B, C, D, E all the way in ascending order. But what if you want it to be, maybe a descending order instead? In this case, after we select our attribute here, we will put DESC, stands for, descending. And as you can see, Nick is now on top and Isaac's on the bottom. And another thing is, as you can see, if I put my keyword in lowercase, it doesn't actually matter. It is just a very, very good habit to have. It is entirely up to you, but this makes the code so much easier to read and just so much better to keep it capitalized. At least a lot of people does it when it comes to SQL, but again, it's entirely up to you. Now we'll go ahead and go about how we can delete the data from the table, which is, for example, if we want to delete, will be delete, and from student, and in this case, who do we want to delete? Let's delete Josh. Don't like Josh that much right now. We'll put Josh aside, and by deleting, maybe he's dropping, but deleting student, delete student where Josh, sorry, name equal Josh. And if I run this, I think I might have, oh, that is right. I always forget syntax. Semicolon is important, but let's get rid of order by in this case. And as you can see, we don't have Josh anymore. And if we just comment this out, in this case, for SQL, the syntax is just 2 dash to comment the whole line out. And I don't think it likes that. Well, and if we just simply just take this out instead, then as you can see that Josh will be there, and if we put it back, it deletes Josh. Another thing that you can do is you can actually make this a another way to find that unique data that you're looking for. For example, you can put and as one of the keyword, and maybe the major is bio. Bio. What this will do is it will delete anyone that's named Josh and bio. So let's put Ken in test, and we'll put computer here. What this is gonna do is it's gonna remove Ken from the table, but if we just remove those whose major is computer, it's gonna remove both Ken and Isaac from that table, which you don't want to do that sometimes. So that and keyword is a really good one to just focus on one data. And another thing is we can go about jointing table as well. When you have, like I said earlier, there's multiple table in certain database, and today if you want to join them to create a new data set, we can go about that. Let me first create a second table and populate that real quick. Alright, I have come back and populate the database, and after creating a new table called academic, we'll go ahead and run this. And oh, it's okay. As you can see, we can't really do that because it's showing students only right now. So if we go ahead and run this while viewing fetching the data for academic, as you can see, we put in here as student ID and their corresponding grade. Uh, in this case, you may want to do this in times like maybe you're just looking at the files, and some people have access to a grade, but not everyone does. So some people can see their name and their major. That's all they need. But today, if you want everything, you'll want to join the table by doing the following command here. Since we're joining table, that's pretty much we'll just pretty much fetch in between. We'll pretty much kind of like merging them, fetching both data, fetching both table from the select statement. In order to do so, we'll have to do things like, let's see, select the columns, which is, let's say we want them the name and the grade only. We want to combine both student and academic, and in this case will be student dot student ID. Perfect. And this just means that we never done this before for the dot part. This just means that student dot student ID means the student ID within the student part. So as you can see in create table for student, we have a student ID, and create table for academic, we also have a student ID, and we have to specify which one we want to use in here. And so we were selecting the columns, so student ID, we want to select, let's see, their name and the grade. From student, from which table? So it will be student in academic, and where, let's see, student dot student ID equals academic dot student ID. Right there, this should run, and we should get a table of not just their name and major, not just their student ID and their grade, but as you can see here, student ID, their name and their grade, student ID, their name and their grade. And we can even do stuff in the select statements, such as let's see, if we want to select certain student that have certain grade, let's say you want to fetch the information of just in particular student, like not their name but their grade, you will put where the student ID equals academic student ID, and let's say their GPA, their grade, is not equal, but maybe perhaps smaller than 3.0. If I rerun that, and as you can see right here, those stats are below 3.0 have shown Nick, Mike, Matt have pop out. So that is another way to use select statement by pretty much apply a filter, not just a string, but to an integer value. Anything that's bigger, less, or sometimes equal can be fine. And that will pretty much conclude this time's video. I'll see you guys next time.